Here in this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to edit a 2-camera interview. So when you've got 2 cameras shooting simultaneously and how to put those together. It's really useful for documentary projects because if you have 2 cameras, you have a lot more editing options. It's a lot easier to make it look smooth and professional versus if you just have 1 camera, you're kind of limited on a lot of your options. So I'm gonna make a new project to start with, and I am going to call this one Coach J 2-camera interview. This is some footage we shot with Coach Johnson, the football coach, a couple of years ago. I think this was before the pandemic. Make sure that you put that in a folder on your desktop called tutorial videos. For me, I'm putting it in my drive. I've got my tutorial videos in the drive, and I've made a 2-camera interview folder. I suggest that you keep everything organized on your desktop, or you will probably end up losing some stuff. So when I open up my project, I've got nothing. I'm going to start by importing the 2 clips that you need to download from Canvas. You got camera with scratch audio, and it's one that says use audio from this camera. When I bring that in, you see that both of the cameras look pretty similar. So really important with 2-camera interviews that you make sure that the settings match between both cameras. That's going to make it a whole lot easier when you're editing later. Each of these clips are about 6 minutes. We're going to edit it down so it's just about 30 seconds. So again, if you're overwhelmed by that, if that sounds like a lot to do, remember we're not going to try to take the whole boulder and try to chisel it down. We don't need to think of it that way. We need to go through and we need to find the clips that are applicable to my subject. In this case, I want to focus on Coach J's activities outside of coaching, outside of teaching. He does some interesting stuff. So we're going to focus on that, and that's what I want to use. So it's more like panning for gold. We're looking for the really good stuff versus trying to chisel down every single thing and get every single thing that he talks about. So when I'm trying to make a multicam sequence, the first thing I need to do is highlight both of those clips, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to create a multi-camera source sequence. All right, so I have a choice here of how I want to organize this. I want to do it by audio. The synchronized points is by audio, so this is very similar to how we did the lip syncing when you were doing the music video. It's going to take the audio because there is audio from both cameras, and it's going to match them up that way. I want to say that I want to use audio from all cameras, and I think that should be it. Let's use clip names to keep track of these. That'll make it a little bit easier to figure out what's what. I'm gonna hit OK. And now it took all the videos that I had and it put those into a folder called Process Clips, a bin, and then I'm left with a multi-camera source sequence. You can see this little icon at the bottom. It looks a little bit different than a typical sequence. So to make it show up here in the timeline, I'm gonna right click and I'm going to make a new sequence from the clip. So you can see that it's got 2 audio options. It looks like I only have one video at the moment, but I'm going to show you how to change that up. I'm going to go ahead, because I know the top track is the one with the scratch audio, I'm just going to mute that whole track. So I should just have the audio, the good audio from the second camera.
You know is false. So I want to say always tell the truth, but...
So I can hear a little bit of that. So to make sure that I can see both cameras, what I need to do here is click this button. It says toggle multi-camera view. If you don't have that, go here to the plus button and you'll see a whole bunch of options that are not always there, and you can drag that down here if you don't have it. But you want the one that has the 4 little squares with the one slightly larger rectangle right next to it. So if I click that view, all of a sudden I've got these 2 cameras. You can actually have many cameras synchronized to each other, but here I've got the 2 cameras and they're already synced up. So when I hit playback...
But it's hard to know what the exact truth is, so I would say just don't tell lies. I think if you can do that, just for
both of those cameras simultaneously, and you can see that they're already matched up. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to go to the beginning and I want to find the part where he is just talking and introducing himself. So with the waveform, I can kind of see where there's talking, where there's not talking.
Introduction?
Yes, an
Okay.
introduction of yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson, and I coach football, and I teach world geography here at Martin.
Okay, so about 20 seconds in, that's over. I can cut 2 ways. I can use the cut tool, the razor tool, or I can hit Control K where my playhead is, So my playhead is this blue line right here. If I hit Control K, that's going to make a mark right there, and I just made a cut, and then I'm going to go back and make the first cut wherever he starts talking.
All right, introduction?
Yes, an introduction of yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson. Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson.
So right here, I'm going to use the cut tool this time, and I'm going to make a cut right there. Okay, so I can delete this audio. I'm going to Shift Delete to Ripple Delete, Ripple Edit, and then here's the really cool part about doing the multi-camera interview. When I hit playback, I'm going to click up here between the two cameras, and it's going to automatically switch when I click to the other camera. So I'm going to hit playback.
Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson, and I coach football, and I teach world geography here at Martin.
Okay, so now you see that line just popped up? That's where I clicked. So when I hit the playback, it's going to automatically switch cameras.
Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson, and I coach football, and I teach world geography here at Martin.
Okay, so that's a really easy way to edit between two different cameras. Now, all I have to do is during playback, click back and forth up here, and it'll record the cuts down here for me. So that's really useful. We're going to go down, way down in the interview and find where he starts talking about his activities outside of school. A lot of the first part is him talking about things that he does at school. Let me try to find the part where he's talking about what he does outside of school.
Just from my boss over at football, but also Miss Roddy as well. You know is false. So I want to say always tell the truth, but it's hard to know what the exact truth. So film is like really close to my. So like a lot of what you guys do here, I like it, and I'm actually in charge of film now over at football. So like we film all the practices and film all the games. They put me in charge of that. So film is like really close to my heart. I make films. I got 2 movies that are going to be coming out here soon, probably.
Okay, so there's a part where he starts talking about movies that he's made.
That are going to be coming out here. I make films. I got 2 movies. I make films.
Okay, so let's say I want to cut all this.
Films. I make films.
Okay, so this is where he says it. I'm going to cut right there. So you can decide where you want to cut. There's parts where he talks about writing books, where he talks about making films is where I'm going to pick up. So that's perfect right there. So if we didn't have the 2 cameras, when we do this cut from right here, it would be a really obvious cut, right? Because you would see that it's cutting within the camera, the same shot. But because I have 2, it's going to be really smooth. So he's going to go from introducing himself to talking immediately about his films.
Yeah, well, I'm Coach Johnson, and I coach football, and I teach world geography here at Martin. I make films. I got 2 movies that are going to be coming out here soon, probably in December. One's a short film, and the other one's a feature length.
Okay, so that's another good place to make a cut. That's got me all the way to 10 seconds in. So you can see how I'm editing this. I want to just cut back and forth between the cameras so it's obvious that it's not obvious that we're taking so much out. So that's what is so useful about having 2 camera interviews. I want you to do the same. Go back in and try to eliminate it, all the extra stuff, so it's just Coach Johnson talking about his passions outside of school. When you're done, you'll export typical way. You can press the quick export button. Just make sure that you're putting that in your exports folder, and make sure that you're exporting H.264.